My name is Crystal Gardner, and I live in the Austin neighborhood on the best side, the west side.
Oh, my name is Edward Whitaker, Chicago police officer, born and raised on the west side of Chicago, and currently I still reside on the west side as I serve and protect as well.
I'm Arewa Karen Winters, and I live in the Austin community. The west side, I think it's straight, no chaser. What you see is what you get. It's also a diamond in the rough. You know, it gets like a city Mississippi mix. You know, it's like cornbread and collard greens with a Jewtown Polish on the side.
The West Side it's a big family. It's like everybody is cousins, but we're all not blood related. You know, everybody can go outside every day and be like, you know, go get your bike. You got your bike? All right, let's go. And man, you just going around with your friends, and you see the snowball stands. You got $1. Back then, you was able to get like 6 things. Now with $1, you probably get 1. The West Side is hope. The West Side is hustle. Think different. We move different. We know we have to work for everything. That's why on the West Side we grind. We hustle hard.
The West Side to me is family, food, music, everybody coming together.
Columbus Park is one of the most beautiful parks. Garfield Park, Douglas Park. The amenities that come with living on the west side, the spaces, actually, the green spaces are very beautiful.
Little village, I mean, it's filled with a lot of energy, restaurants, community, good people, good environment.
But we also have a lot of community gardens. We have a great infrastructure. We have a lot of Chicago park districts. We have goats. We have chickens. We go by a particular slogan, and it echoes everywhere. And it goes like this: the West Side is the what? The best side.
It's the West Side. Like, it's in my walk. It's in my talk. It's in my speech. It's in my attitude. It's in my flow. It's in my movement. It's the West Side.
The west side is resilient, and most importantly, the west siders are proud to be living on the west side. So there's a lot of pride. So you have that family element that makes it welcoming, and also kind of brings just a sense of pride, because, you know, I've been on the west side for 38 years, so I can't deny any part of it, and I would never. My neighborhood made me the person that I am right now.
We're comprised of everything and everyone, and even transitionally, you know, like when my family moved into Austin, it was predominantly white, Irish, possibly Italian. My mother, which I don't know how true this is, I'm going to do some investigating, but she said that we brought our building from the Toronto bread family. So, you know, there was a presence. So, you know, of course, that great migration started happening where people from the South started moving to the North. And, you know, some went to the South side, but a lot of folk that came from the South ended up on the West side. But my family has been in Chicago for at least 6 generations.
I like to write. I do a lot of writing. One of my greatest pieces, I haven't shared it with anybody, but like 3 people. It's called The West Side Pandemic. And it's called that because I feel like the biggest group of people that no one understands is our boys that's in the street, and the West Side pandemic really like gets to the nitty gritty of why it happens. And I feel like if everybody reads that, that's gonna change something.
Well, what brought me to the West Side? Obviously, the best side. I started off, I went to Weston House, which is on the West Side, one of the best basketball high schools in the country. So living on the West Side since high school, I was able to kind of find that heart, that passion. On the West Side, police officers haven't had the best perception. So I was lucky enough to have a brother who had friends who were police officers. So playing basketball with officers growing up, I was able to see and humanize their actions. So now becoming an officer, I try to really hone in on the perception. So when any little kid runs up, I smile. I try to be present in the moment. That way their perception can go a long way. There's a big misconception right now that people don't like police. They do. They really do. And they'll tell you, they'll wave you down, hey, I just wanted to say thank you. There's been plenty times when I went out to eat, for lunch and someone paid for my bill.
One funny one, which I know is not true, right, is that we don't have grass, but we absolutely do. I have 4 lawns, count them, full of grass. But no, just the West Side being conflicted with violence, the public safety concerns, the lack of resources. These aren't real misconceptions, but they don't complete the narrative or the vision of the West Side.
I think the misconception, though, is that the West Side is just blatantly violent. It's there's nothing else on the West Side but crime, and and that's just not true. I want to talk about a couple of good things that happened on the West Side that impacted my family. My father passed in 2010, but my mother is still alive and with us. But I say we're living with dementia. She has dementia, but we're living with dementia. And at one point in time, my mother had started wandering. She started getting out of the house. And there's one particular day when she got out. When I got home from work, my nephew was like, Auntie, I was scared to death because, Granny got out. He said, next thing I know, he said, I went to the back looking. He said, I went to the front. And he was like, it was a guy walking her down the street. And he looked like he could have been one of, my daddy friends. And he, and I was like, well, that's a beautiful thing because my mother had on 2 diamond rings. She had on her wedding diamond 40th anniversary, and my father has this little gold nugget, little diamond encrusted ring, and she had those rings on. And whoever this person was, didn't knock her over her head, didn't hurt or harm her. He made sure she got home safely. It's things like that. I remember one time I was at work, my garage door didn't let all the way down, and an old neighbor, he doesn't even live in the neighborhood anymore, but he happened to be in the neighborhood, and he called me. He was like, Tish, you left your garage door up. He was like, I went in and I closed it for you. It's that's who we are.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday.
I literally filled out an application to be a city year because a friend of mine that lived in LA already, he hey, do city year, you can get to LA. So I'm like, okay, cool. So I did the application, I did the interview, and after I did the interview, I got the job right on spot. But I didn't even know what a city year was. Like I said, I was just trying to get to LA. So after I got the job, I went on their website and I was trying to find something what is city year? But it basically summed up you'll be helping youth. And I'm like, oh, okay, I can do that. You're supposed to help people. So I knew that in my whole life. So I'm like, okay, I can do that. I can help people. That first week of being in the school, I realized it was way bigger than me getting to LA. And I had connected with 2 students that first week, and from there my roster just grew, and I just realized like these kids, you know, they're misunderstood, and you know, I felt like the ones that people be like, oh, they bad, they were like, well, they weren't like, they are really good kids. Like, just sit down, talk to them, have a conversation, like understand why they come in with an attitude. So, and I just loved it.
So due to the pandemic, there is food insecurity in our neighborhood and around the city of Chicago. So for the past 2 years, our community organization has expanded a food pantry in Little Village and serves around over 1,000 people a month. Recently, we had a large influx of migrants coming from Texas and all around America, and our organization is helping with that work. Just providing support for them. They're new to this country, so they don't have nothing or resources, connections. Some don't even have a phone to get around. But just walking with them, helping them find jobs, look for jobs, comfort them, and give them positive energy so they could go about their day.
So I've been in Austin for 38 years. You know, I come from politicians. I ran from politics and anything politic related. I'm right now building political power on the West Side. I ran the West Side region for Brandon Johnson's successful mayoral campaign, and there was so much excitement. People felt heard. People felt like they were given hope. And I want to nurture that hope that people have expressed and that excitement. So political organizing, building community, political education, so that my neighbors, my fellow West Siders, are confident and have the necessary tools to have these conversations, to continue to be change agents in like one-on-one conversations with their neighbors, with their family members, with their friends, and then the transformation can be equitable.
Once upon a time, my parents owned a business. They owned a grocery store in the community, and a grocery store and a candy store. And my daughter and I have been talking about not necessarily bringing the grocery store back, but we do want to open a business in the community. I'm also an activist and an organizer. I do social justice work. I'm very big on police reform. I call it the work of my life, and I'll be involved on some level for years and years to come. And I also plan on going back to school to get my bachelor's degree in police reform, accountability, and oversight. So yeah, I'm gonna be in it for a minute.
So I coach and mentor for the Chicago West Side Police and Youth Sports Conference, which is a coalition of groups, faith-based, non-for-profit, and a local law enforcement. And what we do is we create a safe space for the youth, 5-year-old to 14-year-old, to have a safe space to play sports. And because we have that 3-legged stool with the faith-based, non-for-profit, and the local law enforcement, like we're able to have a more holistic approach to it. You know, the smile on the child's face while they're playing sports is priceless.
Really, my future, since I've became a mentor and since I've started working in the community, everything that I think about, okay, if I'm gonna do this, how will it help the community? How will it help the West Side? Like, I love film and I want to be a film director. So I had this big dream of going to Hollywood, but now it's like, you know, what if you do film festival here? What if you start doing plays here for neighborhoods, you know, getting the community to sign up for plays, giving them options to be creatives and giving youth opportunity to even just be a kid. And so everything I think about surrounds around that now. So
I mean, the work in the community is what's on my mind now. I hoped that I could one day create my own organization and focusing on sports. I really love sports. I will definitely stay in Little Village, but I love Little Village and the West Side as well.
I see myself as the son of Chicago, of the West Side that never left. So not the son that, stayed with his parent too long, but I'm the son that stayed once he learned, went to school, graduated, he got a job, things like that, and stayed. And the reason why I stayed is so I can show my support. I think once people who make the money that we make and have the experiences that we have, if we stay, we can make a better West Side.
I knew how to be a mentor. I knew how to connect with youth. I could do that in my sleep, but I wanted to be able to do community engagement, do community development, do community leadership, and that's why I was so attracted to the community fellowship offer. And since I've joined, I've got to meet the most incredible leaders I didn't even think we had until Community Leadership Fellows, and just being able to be a part of, the first cohort with founders and presidents of organizations that they founded on their own, and, me coming from just learning how to mentor has been amazing.
My commitment to seeing the West Side be transformed by the people who have been there, who have maintained through all of the divestment, all of the public safety concerns or threats to public safety. That is my commitment, to transform the West Side, to transform my community, Austin, so that the power is put back into the hands of the people, and that those communities are thriving and working for the people, for the many, for folks that are, it's a working class community, right? Working class region of the city. And it is time now that those communities are working for the people who have been there, who persevered, who stayed.
And I think it's like the pulse of the city. I think it is definitely the pulse, and we are the community to watch. Yeah.
Good evening, Chicago and beyond. I'm Bianca Cotton, host of CAN TV's signature program, Behind the Confident Smile. Joining me as co-host of tonight's Town Hall conversation is the host of CAN TV's In the Money, Kimberly Loftis. Great to share the stage with you, Kimberly.
Thanks, Bianca. Right back at you. We all just have the shared experience of watching the remarkable short film, Trajectory of Hope, Stories of the West Side. The group of incredible leaders highlighted in the film are assertively committed to rewriting the narrative about Chicago's West Side communities and the people who live there. In a world where news is distributed in sound bites, focus on one part of the complete story, opportunities for fuller discussions like the one we're going to have tonight are more important than ever. So thank you for joining the conversation.
Before we introduce our panel, I'd like to introduce you to the Advisory Council Chairperson for Community Leadership Fellows, the organization responsible for bringing these incredible leaders together, Lieutenant Harris.
Community Leadership Fellows is a leadership development experience that involves educational workshops, tactical trainings, collaborative learning, coaching, mentoring, and networking. We believe that the investments in homegrown talent will lead to sustainable, vibrant communities. By approaching the fellowship with the concept of do nothing about me without me, the fellows are provided with the support to lay down a foundation that will lead the residents of the West Side to reclaim their blocks, their community, and their businesses. When you invest in people from the community to lead, true economic and social change will take place. CLF is working to remove the stigma of grassroots leaders not being polished enough to take part in executive leadership opportunities. We're shifting that mindset by building social capital in order to build capacity. We are a feeder system. We are preparing the fellows to enter the leadership pipeline to create a space at the table that has been vacant for far too long.
Thank you, Lieutenant Harris. And now it's my genuine pleasure to introduce the incredible members of the inaugural Community Leadership Fellows cohort participating in our panel tonight. Ed Whitaker, Community Policing Officer, Chicago Police Department. Crystal Gardner, Associate Political Director, United Working Families. Arewa Karen Winters, 15th Police District Councilwoman. Lady Sanders, Program Manager, My Block, My Hood, My City.
Welcome, everyone. Let's dive right into the conversation. First question of the evening. Why do you think the West Side continues to be so maligned in the media and public opinion? Arewa, I see you.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I'm sitting here like, how we doing this? Is it gonna go this way? Popcorning in. Well, I was also thinking about the part of the introduction when it was said that we're rewriting the narrative, and I had to kind of let that sit with me for a moment because I don't think I'm personally rewriting a narrative, right? I can't untell my great-grandmother's story or untell my mother's story, my daughter's story, my granddaughter's story. I think I am adding to the collective story and building on the work that my mother and my grandmother did on the West Side for many, many, many years in very many capacities. So that's one thing, I'm not recreating narrative, but I think one of the reasons why is because, I mean, just the years, and we talk about this before, just the years and years of disinvestment, the years and years of, under resources to the community, which I think is intentional. And this happened many years ago, and my mother said this once Blacks started to move in certain areas on the West Side because something came up, some letter came through something, and my mother saw it, and she was like, they're gonna plan 20 years out how they want to see this community come back to its original state. So that means to keep them depleted, that means to let the violence run rampant, that means to saturate with drugs and other things, because at some point we may want this community back. And so therefore we're gonna have to get rid of everything that's here, primarily Black and brown people, to have that. And I think that holds true today. It's just that, it's Black people like us that's there like, we're not going nowhere, so y'all better move around. It's the center of the city. Even if it's not the geographical center, it's the center. We're connected to everything. We're connected to the north side, the south side, the affluent suburbs, and downtown. And so we're a prime community, what I'm saying? We are prime. And so I think that, the powers that be don't particularly like that. So they're gonna let us keep, doing everything that's doing and happening to discourage us, because there is Black flight, even from the West Side. Blacks are leaving the West Side. Blacks are leaving the city of Chicago. And I think it's intentional and by design. So for those of us who are here, that we gotta hold on to what we got. Don't let them run us away. So that's what I think.
If I can piggyback on what Arewa was saying, white supremacy, I'm just going to start, that's how I come into the conversation. White supremacist ideology does not have a lens of to see things in its beautiful, most natural state, especially when they're trying to take control and gentrify the community. So the narrative will always be that it is not what it is, but whose narrative is it? That's the real question. Who is answering that question? Is it, 30 plus year residents of the West Side, or is it a, rich developer, that has their eyes on the prize, which is the West Side. So.
I just wanted to give a perspective from like youth. They like they said, who gave the narrative, and I feel like youth are the most misunderstood people because we try to throw resource, but in reality, that young man mother might need an extra $500 a month, or just the last 2 weeks probably some extra food. So I think we tend to focus on the wrong thing when it's real simple. It's real simple.
And it also, was a concerted effort to get us where we are today. So it wasn't by our doing alone or at all. I'm not gonna take the responsibility or put that responsibility on my parents who came and moved 38 years ago, that they didn't do something right.
That's right.
No, it was a concerted effort to remain divested, to keep this community in a certain way because of the occupants of the community. But the beautiful thing is that we're still here and we can tell those stories and rewrite that narrative so that it doesn't look like this violent infested region of the city, but it also can be this thriving commuter town that gets people everywhere, like Array was talking about, throughout the city with just one train ride. So I just wanted to name the culprit here, and it's not us. It is white supremacy and divestment.
Well, I'll speak a little bit. So as it relates to my perspective, I think that everybody's opinion is echoed. The West Side where we live is very unique. And a lot of times that does come with a strain, all right? And what I mean by that is the media and sometimes with the politics, they try to come at it at a different angle as relates to implicit bias, right? So those stereotypes that they think that are happening, we know that they don't happen. And so once that communication starts to transpire, we'll be able to tell someone who does not come to the West Side or has those biases that, hey, this is actually what happens. So
we have this disinvestment happening in the community. We have this negative public opinion, but the media plays a part in that. How can we change that? What can we do? Because who is specifically that person or that interest group that's maintaining that negative stereotype?
I think we need to tell our stories. We need to have opportunities like this. We need to have more. Can TV needs more funding so that they can, right? So that they can do more shows and events that will amplify the voices of actual residents. But we also have a mayor from the West Side, so we have an opportunity to really identify and own our political and our social freedom and liberation with the leaders that we elected, right? And holding them accountable. It's a new day.
And for those of them listening, as an individual, if I'm a West Sider, what can I do as an individual to get my story out there?
Speak truth to power, and that is giving visuals, documenting the beauty and the essence of the neighborhoods that we live in. Yeah. But definitely speaking truth to power. Name it, and own what it is that you're naming, because that's your lived experience, right? We own our lived experiences, and no one, it doesn't matter how much money they have, should be able to occupy or buy that experience from us. So I'm gonna stop there.
And what you said about truth to power, I remember, what Brother G2 said was to speak power to power. Like that's when, you show up and your authentic West Side self, and you know, claim space for your community and be a good representation of your community, because there have so many times, you know, whether you're in a meeting room, whether you're at an event, and it's like, so does somebody like, oh, you from out what, like what is happening right now? Like, where are we going? What is this? I'm still trying to figure out what that is, or what truly has created that, and what is sustaining that. Like, why is 2020? I've been hearing this since I was a very little girl, and so I'm a very grown woman with a granddaughter now. Now she's hearing some of those same stories. Like, so what created this? I don't know. The media doesn't play that part, but they do. What do? Well, like once upon a time, okay, so sex sells, so now crime and violence sells. It's like, so, you know, they flood the media with all these horrific images and horrific stories. But I promise you, when it comes to the West Side, for that one little incident or story, there were hundreds of other beautiful, positive things that were happening, probably even right around wherever that happened, that they could. My thing is just give us some balance. Like, if you're going to show this over here, but give an opportunity to show something positive and uplifting and transforming, because that's truly who we are as a community. Very resilient, very resourceful, very creative, everything. We have it. And so to begin to show some of those other things, but I don't phrase it as white supremacy, because I don't think there's anything supreme about them. But I look at it as what it is. It's racism, right? And its fullest extent, which Dr. Bobby Wright says is a mental illness, right? We don't address racism as a mental illness. It's a mental health condition that some people need treatment for. So yeah, that plays a part in it too, but I still think it's that trying to, I don't even want to say contain us at this point, but trying to put us in such an apparatus that when certain things do begin to happen, it's almost like, oh, but it's the West Side. You know, that happens, but it's just, they're just from the West Side, or they, you know, so I believe that perpetuates a lot of it as well. But like she said, you know, for channels like, you know, Can TV giving us this opportunity and platform, and, you know, we need Black news media to tell our own stories. So, yeah.
That was what I was going to ask with the plethora of organizations on the West Side. Like, are they utilizing their social media platforms to lift up the voices and the stories that we are bringing here today? Like, instead of waiting on a news station to say, hey, we're going to feature you, feature yourself.
So yes, on the West Side we do, but the West Side is so big and we want the world to know more. So we're calling on the national, you know, media, because it's really a great opportunity to live on the West Side. The experiences that I've had, my learned experiences, are life-changing. So with that being said, you know, I would prefer, you know, the national TV, but yeah, on the West Side, we do have our local newspaper, Facebook, Instagram. You know, everybody kind of talks. My fellow who's next to me, she administers a Facebook, Activate Austin, and through that, you know, in my profession, I look on that to see what's going on as well. So, you know, I'm utilizing this network to help out the Chicago Police Department.
I just want to add, I was just making sure Lady didn't, because this your wheelhouse, like media. I'm just putting her out there, right? But I wanted to add that I think there is Austin specifically has a lot of nonprofit organizations. Shout out to Aisha Oliver, who gave us that stat of about 1,400 nonprofits. And we are all scattered, we are all siloed, but there are a lot of veteran tenured organizations too of that 1,400, and I think a lot of it speaks to like the intergenerational disconnect, because I love our elders. I'm looking at my mother in the audience, but you know, this social media is overwhelming for me, you know, so I can only imagine what our elders who have been in leadership, who have been like conditioned in a very beautiful and like grassroots way of like writing stuff on paper, you know, taking notes and like transferring that to a Google Doc can be like, whew, you know. So I think it speaks to the lack of like public conversation of the real and the great work that's happening on the West Side is just an outcome of like the intergenerational disconnect that we're experiencing as young organizers, you know, or up and coming organizers, community change agents, and we're trying to get seats at those tables. And thankfully, Community Leadership Fellows, CLF, has like, okay, this has been a challenge, so let's create our own space, right? But I do have hope, you know, with every day that we are still waking up and having issues that we need to address, that there will be an opportunity for us to bridge that gap so that our tenured veteran community organizers and activists, their voices are amplified too. And it's not just because I can do a TikTok video and, you know, Miss Edie Jacobs with Get to Work, who is viciously fighting right now against fighting for jobs from Amazon on the West Side. She's been a pillar in the community for over 2 decades. Like I believe and I have hope that there is an opportunity where, you know, we would have the capacity to be able to go to Miss Jacobs and her organization and say, hey, let me hook up your social media, you know, so that people know exactly what you're doing, because she has the Get to Work organization and she's employing, you know, our most vulnerable population so that they can re-enter the workforce and be contributing citizens. But you have, this is where I get to my organizing. You have organizations and corporations like Amazon that are like stalling the opening of that facility, and so it's making it hard. But maybe Miss Edie can get a little bit more support if she amplified her fight a little bit more via social media, you know. And I'm not the one that could do that, but maybe Lady and her young folks that she's mentoring, you know, we could come up with an opportunity to like connect them with Miss Edie to say, hey, they're going to help you with your social media, you know. So that was a long answer, but in short, it speaks to the intergenerational disconnect that we're experiencing on the West Side. And my hope is that we can find a way to fill the gap and everybody is respected and seen and acknowledged for the work that they've done.
Okay. Definitely.
And just to piggyback on Crystal, like, even for myself, it's hard for me. My boss is always saying, like, oh, you know, make a post about what you're doing for the youth, like, off record. Because I do a lot. I feel like if you stick to the job description, ain't nothing going to happen. Because the description that they gave you is putting you in a box. So going above and beyond for them is like, it's meaningful. I forgot where I was going with this story. Oh, and so so when I'm helping the youth, that's just me helping them. But to put it into words, I struggle with that because now I feel like I'm doing this because I want to do it. I shouldn't be having to make a post about it. That's just how I feel. But just being with CLF and just exactly what you said, like, it's important to get that out there. So, yeah. So.
Okay, ladies, starting with you, can you tell me the top 3 things of the West Side that makes it the best?
Top 3 things? The youth I met in 2017, they're my friends now. Like, if I'm going through something, I'm gonna call them before I call my friends now. So the youth, community. My mom bought the house my mom didn't buy it, I'm sorry. My dad bought the house for my mom when she told him that she was pregnant with me. So I'm 29, we've been there for 29 years. Wow. And so that just meant like she always felt like this was home. So community and I don't know, we just the best. Like I said in the documentary, it's in our walk, it's in our talk, it's in our speech. Like, I work on a team full of Southsiders. I kid you not, I am the only West Sider. And I love them to death, but I see the difference, like, when I talk versus when they talk, how I speak about it versus when they speak about it. It's just different. It's just,
In your own language.
I feel like West Side, I feel like DuSable started there and then branched off.
Okay, I'll take that.
Crystal, what about you?
Okay, I know my name. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I was like, did I get it wrong?
I was expecting to go down the line. Okay. Man, yeah, definitely the people, first and foremost. Our pride. I'm trying to stick with the P's. And I'm going to go with our parks. Because, like, low-key, we have the most beautiful green spaces. Columbus Park is one of the most beautiful parks, you know, in the world, in my opinion. And the fact that it's nestled on the west side, we have a full 9-hole golf course that our, you know, friends from Oak Park, you know, they take up more space than we do. Yeah. You know, so yeah, definitely the people. We've been here. My family, they came from South Shore, and we've been here for 38 years in county. We have generations of folks that are here that have persevered but thrived, right? I was able to, like, I'm organizing my community right now. Like, I get paid to knock doors to my neighbors and have conversations. And I never thought that was possible, you know, but, and that's probably like the gift and the curse, because it's needed. That's why an organization was like, we're gonna pay you to do this, because it's very important, you know, but it also is just reconnecting me to the foundation. You know, I can use my lived experience, thank God for my parents and the exposure that they brought me, to demand more for my neighbors. Because guess what? I got all of this right here on the west side, right here in Austin. So the fact that you didn't have that opportunity, I'm going to fight a little bit harder, because I'm giving you proof that you deserve it. So the people, our pride, I hope that you all can hear that in you know, my communication, and our parks. The spaces are beautiful.
The 3 Ps.
The 3 Ps. Yes.
Raywa, I would love to hear your thoughts and our closing question around the recent influx of immigrants into West Side communities has brought new attention and resources to the area. Are there mixed feelings about this newfound sense of care being paid to communities that had been long ignored, despite a myriad previous pleas for support and resources?
Absolutely. And not my spirit woman, right? She's good with taking care of everyone, right? She wants to see everyone whole, everyone happy, everyone getting everything that they need. But my black woman liberated self, like, she had a problem with it, because we have homeless people in the coldest winter months in the world sleeping under viaducts, right? And so we couldn't find resources, like, right? But here we have, you know, a population of color, like, they're not Haitians, they're not, you know, they're refugees, you know what I'm saying? There's this, and that's also due to racism and how things are constructed, but we don't give that level of care needs to go everywhere, to everyone. And so for our community, you know, and this was not many years ago, my father could drive me past spaces and he could say that before the King riot, such and such was there, or such and such was there. And these spaces are still vacant and still empty and still dilapidated. So $51 million could go a long way, right? It could have gone a long way. You know, there could have been other infrastructures, right, to help the community at large. So it wouldn't just seem like we had this population and now all this money is going there. Like, that wealth could have been, you know, administrated a little differently. But no, I believe if we are the city of big shoulders, so they say, but I also believe that charity begins at home. So we take care of our own. I have absolutely no problem with taking care of anyone and everyone else. So
Thank you.
that was my issue with
Thank
it.
you for sharing that. How can non-Westsiders be advocates for your community?
Okay, awesome. Well, great question. So the West Side is a unique community. So you can always obviously follow us on social media with CLF, Community Leadership Fellows. You can follow any of my other fellows on our Instagram or LinkedIn. What you're going to see is something like as extremely tangible where you can grasp it. Most of our West Siders have a lot of style, so you'll be, taking the hairstyles. You'll be taking our clothing, So things like things like that. We definitely want to, enhance those things. So if you want the food, we have particular areas of food where we excel in, and also the dance. I don't want to leave out the dance. So. The West Side, we have our West Side footwork. So those three things, tangible, that you can follow us on any social media platform, any national platform. I think that those are the three things that I would say, especially.
Okay, for me, allyship requires organizing, right? Allyship requires listening. Allyship requires research. Find you a real West Sider. Basically, find you a West Sider and have a conversation with them and ask the question of how do I support you versus coming over here with your grand ideas of what you think we need. You can be totally off. So I embrace allyship. We need it. Like the West Side, we need the resources, the bodies, we need the money from our neighboring communities, but we also need them to fall back and allow us to take up space. So bring your resources, but come with a listening ear and kind of like a closed mouth, respectfully.
Closed mouth. What was I thinking for us? So many things. How to advocate for us. I guess you have to get to know who we are. How can you advocate for us if you don't know, like truly, like who we are, the essence of who we are? Because the West Side that I know is rich of history and family and community and all of those things that sustain my family that that came here. Some people say migrate, some people say fled the South. Either way, they ended here, and I just remember even with the segregation that was permeating this city, so much so that when Dr. King came here, he was like, this is one of the most racist, someone that came from the South that said that came here to Chicago and said that about our city, right? And I don't know if he was on the West Side either when he said that. But yes, first to get to know us, and then don't use a single lens view. Like you have to use a panoramic view of who we are, because we can go from one extreme to the next, as well as any other community, as well as any other city. So my thing is just come and get to know us for yourselves, and don't listen to so much of the dogma, especially because you have out-of-towners that come to the West Side. They fall in love with us, right? So they don't even know what the problem is. Like, what is this? Like, I love the West Side. What is going on? We don't experience this in other cities. Again, I don't know how it happened. I don't know how it started or why it started, but definitely get to know us, experience who we are, and see us as equals. Like, don't be looking down and turning your nose up at us, because we is all in this together.
For me personally, it's I feel like we shouldn't put like a title, so it shouldn't be like, what way can you help the West Side? It should be, okay, what way can you help this group of people that stay on the a little further than what you're normal to. And it's almost like basketball. You know, they're going up against each other, they studying each other, but it's to beat them. I think if we all took the time to study each other, so we all can win, because we all live in Chicago, and Chicago is very segregated. And so I feel like if we take that perspective, like that's big change. You know, it's just like with youth. You know, I see other people struggle to just just break the ice or just break the wall. But had they came in like on their level, because I believe in you got to scoop down first to bring them up. You just can't go in there, hovering over them right off. You got to come down first. So I feel like a lot of people walk into a room differently. So when you come into the West Side, come from a genuine perspective and things like that, because we hardcore. Like, don't be coming over there thinking you finna tell us what you finna do, because we gonna tell you what you not gonna do. And that's just how it's gonna be. So, yeah, just come genuine, and we gonna feel it. West Siders, we are feelers. You know, when we walk into a room, we like, all right, we ain't gonna be here too long. I feel like something, and then 9 out of 10 you leave, you be like, see, so come correct, and we gonna come correct too.
That's good. Now, when a person come, where should they come to? Is there a certain person they should talk with, a certain organization they should go to, or a certain restaurant or cafe? Like, where should they start?
Well, I think for us, they could start with CLF. I mean, that's who connected us, and there's so many other dynamic us's like in the cohort, and from there they could connect you to everything else, the organizations, the food, everything you can get from there. That's the core. Get to CLF, and we could take you everywhere else you need to go, and probably don't need to go.
Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, it's just like an example for us. The only organization I knew when I started mentoring, and since the 6 years I've been doing, is City Year and My Block, My Hood, My City, because that's what I was part of. But organizing Downtown Day and then being a part of CLF, like, just opened doors of like possibilities I didn't even know. Like, I didn't know it was this many small organizations. It's so many great organizations that don't get the platform that most organizations do, and it is so many incredible organizations out there. Like, I was just like, dang, like, why I ain't heard of them? Like, y'all doing that, like, their mission is great and everything like that. So
that's phenomenal. Thank you for sharing that. The conversations are not always easy to have, but they are absolutely necessary if we are ever going to find our way forward together, unlearning some deeply rooted and long-held beliefs about the West Side that are at best incomplete.
Thank you to this group of incredible leaders and West Side champions for pushing us all on our collective journeys toward the community.
And thank you, Chicago and beyond, for tuning in. Until next time, be safe, be well.